Here we go. This is what we're going to solve using matrix row operations. It's x plus 2y minus z equals 9. 2x minus z equals negative 2. Minus z. 3x plus 5y plus 2z equals 22. Now you notice there's not a y there, so we leave that space blank, so we make sure our x's, y's, z's line up. So does the equal sign, and then those other numbers, they're all lined up. Okay, when you go from 2 equations to 3 equations, right, it's a lot more work. It's a big step. But we're going to do it line by line together. I only have this one example because these things, they take quite a bit of time. And one example is all you need because it's the same procedure every time. The first step is to write the matrix form. So let's do that first. Again, it's the coefficients. So I've got 1, 2, negative 1, 9. 1, 2, negative 1, 9. 2, hey, if there's a blank spot, what do you put there? It's like 0y, right? So 2, 0, negative 1, and then the negative 2. And finally 3, 5, 2, 22 for row number 3. Row number 1, row number 2, row number 3. All right, now the question becomes, what is the goal? If you have 3 equations, 3 variables, this thing is a beast. What's the row echelon form look like? Okay, so here it is off to the side, and I've written it kind of small. But it's going to be, that first column is going to be 1, 0, 0. Then we'll have a question mark, 1, 0, question mark, 1, and then all question marks out over here. So going down the columns 1, 0, 0, then something, 1, 0, something, something, 1, and then we'll have it. So another way people describe this is ones along the diagonal, and then you have zeros underneath those ones and other numbers above. Why do we want that? Because what is that last row telling us? 0x, 0y, z. Z equals whatever this is, right? So if we can do that, we'll know what z is, and we can back substitute, get y, and then back substitute to get x. Okay, obviously we're going to do all this together. That's our goal right there. Okay, so how do we go about the goal? The order is very important. We're going to begin in the upper left, and then we're going to go down the columns. So we're going to get the 1, then we're going to get the 0, then the other 0. Then, once we have all those 3, then we move on to the second column and get that a 1, then that 0, and then finally we need to make this a 1. So there are 6 steps. And then we'll wrap it up by finding all the variables. Okay, we're going to go through this very methodically, very slow. So let's look. Hey, you know what? We already have a 1 in the upper left. Perfect. That saves us a step. That's not uncommon. And actually, the previous example where you switch rows, that's a very common first step, switching rows. Sometimes, though, you get it immediately. So we lucked out here. Other times it's some more work, but switching rows very common as a first step to get the 1. And here, we just have it. Okay, so we can move on. Once we have that 1, let's get the 0 underneath it. So right there, we want to make that a 0. Sorry, I'm off the screen a little bit. Okay. Here's what I highly, 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 highly encourage. Whenever it comes time to make a 0, take advantage of the 1 that's in the same column. Use the 1 to get you a 0 right here. We actually did that in the last example. How are we going to use that 1 to make a 0? Multiply it by whatever you need so that when you add it to this number, you get a 0. So we're going to multiply that by -2. So when we add it to +2, it's eliminated. Of course, we need to multiply everything here by -2 and add them to their corresponding entry. How do we notate that? Okay, I've got it right here. We're going to say -2 times everything in row 1. Then we're going to add those with row 2, and it's going to give us a new row 2. So that equals row 2 means row 2 gets replaced. All right, let's do it. Notice we're not replacing row 1 or row 3, so you might begin just by copying those. 1, 2, -1, 9. 3, 5, 2, 22. None of that changes. Then we'll go back and do our operation. So -2 times 1, -2, plus 2 is 0. Feel free to use a calculator for this sort of thing. You don't have to do it in your head. -2 plus 2 gives us the 0. Well, of course, that's how we planned it. So let's move on to the next one. -2 times 2, -4. -4 plus 0 gets us that -4. Using the same instructions for the next number. -1 times -2, +2, plus -1 is 1. Go through these steps very slowly, because one mistake, a negative sign, I mean, who knows what? There's so many opportunities for small mistakes, silly mistakes. One mistake, everything from there forward is wrong. And then at that point, if you realize you're wrong in the end, you might as well just start the whole question over again, because it becomes very, very difficult to find your mistake, and it's really aggravating trying to search for it, trust me. So go through this very slowly and accurately. Double check yourself. Don't trust your first calculation. Do it twice, right? You'll actually finish the problem faster if you are more, or if step by step you feels like you're going slow, because you won't make errors. Okay, finally we need -2 times 9, -18. -18 plus -2 gives us the -20. Okay, so 0, -4, 1, -20 is our new row 2. And now we have the 1 and we have the 0. So far so good. We'll go down again. That 3 right there, we want to make that a 0. And you see my instructions here on the side. What am I doing? Okay, you want to make something a 0? Use the 1. Use the 1. Multiply it by -3 and add it to this. I mean, it's right there for you. Take advantage of the 1. So I've got -3 times row 1. Add it to row 3, and it becomes the new row 3. And then I've got that big arrow, of course, underneath, like always. So let me show you how this works. Down here. Okay, so we're going to turn it into this. Again, notice we're replacing row 3, so row 1 and row 2 don't change. So I've got 1, 2, -1, 9, 0, -4, 1, -20. So I can just copy that and then follow my instructions. -3 times row 1. So -3 times 1 is -3, plus the 3 gives me the 0 here. Perfect. -3 times 2, -6, plus 5, -1. -3 times -1 is +3. +3 plus 2 is 5. -3 times 9, -27, plus 22, -5. Again, feel free to do those calculations in a calculator. But just be careful with your clicking and that everything's accurate. Look back at it, go slow. You'll get to the answer faster if you go slow, because you'll do it right the first time. Okay, so we're doing really good. We got everything in the first column. We're halfway there. Now we're going to move to the second column, and we're going to go for this. We're going to make that a 1. I like to take advantage of different color markers on a whiteboard. Right now I got only pencil. That's the way it goes. Let's make this a 1. Okay. To make that a 1, we got to be careful because we don't want to undo the fact that we have a 0 there. That'd be disastrous. So we got to think of a way to make that a 1. And there's a couple options, and you see my step there in the middle, but there's a couple options here. We could multiply everything in this row by -1/4. 0 times -1/4 is still 0. This times -1/4 would give me the 1. We'd introduce a fraction here, but you know, maybe we're not. That's not a big deal to us. Turns out there is another option that will not produce a fraction, so I'm going to go that way. I see -1 underneath. Okay, that's not a 1, but it's pretty close. So I'm going to just switch row 2 and row 3. Switch row 2 and row 3. Why not? I got a 0 there. If I switch the zeros, no big deal. So that becomes here. All I did was switch row 3 becomes here. 0, -1, 5, -5. Row 2 went down here. 0, -4, 1, -20. That's it. Now, I still haven't gotten the 1, but I'm super close now. All I got to do is take a negative of each of those entries there in row 2. So I wrote negative row 2 equals row 2. It's like I'm multiplying everything in row 2 by -1. And it's becoming my new row 2. No problem, I can do that. So I get to this matrix. Row 1 didn't change. 1, 2, -1, 9. Neither did row 3. 0, -4, 1, -20. But now I took the negative of each part here. 0, +1, -5, +5. And I got that 1 right there. This is great. We're really doing well. Okay, my next goal. I'm going to look beneath the 1. I want to make that a 0. How can I get this to be 0 and not change the fact that this, I have a 0 here also? I can't mess that up. Remember my advice. When you make things zeros, take advantage of the 1. Look directly above it. Use this 1 here to make this a 0. And because we have zeros here and here, it's not gonna change this 0. What should we multiply this by to eliminate that -4? +4, right? Multiply by +4, add here, you get the 0. Of course, we have to do that all the way across, but this is going to work out. Okay, so I got 4 times row 2. I'm going to add that with row 3, and that's going to get me a new row 3. So let's go. 4 times 0. Don't forget this. Don't just go straight to the 1. 4 times 0. 4 times 0 is 0 plus the 0. It stays a 0. That's key. Then 4 times 1 is 4 plus the -4 gives me that 0. And I'll keep going. 4 times -5, -20 plus the 1, -19. 4 times 5 is 20 plus the -20. That happens to be a 0. That's a coincidence. But you know, I don't mind. Okay, so we got the 1. We got the 0. We got this 0. Then we got this 1. Then we got this 0. We're one step away right there. We need that to be a 1. And then we'll have it. Very exciting. These are not short problems, obviously. Whenever you solve a system, just buckle in. That's why we're only doing one example here. How am I going to make negative 19 a 1? And I have to retain these zeros out here to the left of it in the process. Well, I only got one option, and that's to multiply it by negative 1/19. That's all that I can do. It looks like I ran out of space on this page, so I'll pick that up. Let's get both of these so you can see my work. The continuous. Okay. I multiply row 3, and it's got to be everything, by negative 1/19. Okay, so obviously that turns my negative 19 into a 1, but it also preserves these zeros. And it just so happens that we had a 0 here also, so I still have 0 there. Everything got multiplied by negative 1/19. And that gives me a new row 3. Okay. We are almost to the answer. We have our row echelon form. We're a couple of quick steps away. What does that last row tell you? Z equals 0. So what I did, I just rewrote the entire matrix in the equation form, but that right there is what's important. We found the value of Z. But if you look at the whole thing, x plus 2y minus z equals 9, y minus 5z equals 5, and then finally z equals 0. So what we'll do, once we know that z value, put it in right here above it, and we'll work our way up. So put that 0 right there. Y minus 5 times 0 equals 5. Well, that's gone, so y just equals 5. Now I know y and z. So let's go back to the first equation. Put 5 in there, put 0 in there. X plus 2 times 5 minus 0 equals 9. Well, that's 10, so subtract x equals negative 1. And just like that, from the row echelon form, the answer comes out very quickly as an ordered triple, negative 150. Now, it's a very, very good idea to go and check your answer. Check those values of x, y, and z in the original equations before you even made the matrix, just to be sure, especially on a test. I mean, homework is one thing, but on tests, don't you want to guarantee that you got the right answer before you submit it? I mean, like, if there is a way you could absolutely guarantee you got it right. So that first equation was x plus 2y minus z equals 9. So if we put them in, negative 1 plus 2 times 5 minus 0, does that really give you 9? Well, yeah, negative 1 plus 10. So that first equation worked. The second equation, 2x minus z equals negative 2. So 2 times negative 1 minus 0. Yeah, that gives me negative 2. And the third equation, 3x plus 5y plus 2z equals 22. Let's see here. 3 times negative 1 plus 5 times 5 plus 2 times 0. You can just put this into a calculator check. You don't even have to write it on the page, but does this really give us the answer? Negative 3 plus 25 plus 0. Yeah, that's 22. We know we got it right. No doubt about it. This is our solution. Okay, good work. I'm just going to send you guys to the homework. Turns out, so, obviously we're in class, we do an example together, but because there are different paths to the answer, and people make different decisions at different moments, it's really best just go to the homework, try out a few, check out the answers in the back. From what I hear, Chapter 4, 4.4 and 4.5 are notorious in this textbook for having wrong answers. in the solutions. But that's not really a big deal because you can always put your solution back into the original equations to see and confirm for sure. So if your answers don't match what's in the textbook, that doesn't even matter because you can check them yourself. And I think I'll just turn you on to that for practice. Good luck. I'll see you guys in the live session. Okay, that's all.